Hello and welcome back to Deep Dive Cinema. This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Max.
We did it.
We finally got a sponsor.
And it's the big boy.
It's Pepsi Max himself. I've got a glass here and it's only this glass that is sponsoring us.
Okay, well, I'd like to personally thank Mr. Max.
Yes, welcome back. How are you, Elliott?
I'm pretty good.
Good. Well, I just wanted to lead by saying there's still a few days left on our Gwenom Funko Pop giveaway, so leave a comment on our previous video, be subscribed to the channel, and or give us a follow on Instagram at Deep Dive Cinema and like the relevant post, and we'll give you a buzz if you win. Yeah,
and then you get a cool Gwenom Funko Pop.
You sure do. Well, Elliot, what's been going on this week?
What's been going on this week? We're past Christmas.
Yeah, well, that was relevant last week.
Yeah, but now we're really past Christmas.
Okay, right. Like, you're
week,
over with it.
Yeah, that week I watched a Christmas film even though it was past the day of Christmas. But now I'm pretty sure the 12 days of Christmas are over.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm well out of it.
It's over, guys.
Yeah.
We gotta wait.
Grow up.
A full year to watch any Christmas film again.
Yeah.
Apart from The Nightmare Before Christmas, which you can arguably watch at Halloween.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cheat code if you know.
If you're trying to speed run the year and really want to get everything in. Yeah.
I read a lot of comics this week.
Yeah?
Yeah, I reread all of Secret Invasion in preparation for the upcoming Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Including most of the spin-offs and tie-ins and what have you also. And I read some other stuff as well. I read the new Web of Venom, which is really cool and interesting, which I guess I'll talk about later. And I read the Captain Marvel issue 1, the new Captain Marvel run.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I thought that as an issue 1, it was very much just the setup issue.
Yeah, it's all exposition.
It's all kind of exposition. It's all like, and something's going to happen, but we're setting the scene. So I feel like I'm really going to enjoy issue 2 more.
Yeah, I hope so.
But yeah, if I'm viewing it as like my hopes for the comic, I'm quite looking forward to it. Will we say what it's kind of leading up to, or?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of leading up to kind of like a Mad Maxy superheroes in a
alternate reality
where it
like
looks
a pocket dimension or something.
Yeah, where it looks real junky and everyone's got like an armor plate on one shoulder and
like lines of paint across their eyes and stuff.
Yeah, it looks quite cool.
Yeah, it's a weird little issue that, and if you're unfamiliar with Captain Marvel as a character, she's not even been Captain Marvel until fairly recently in the comics. She was Miss Marvel for a very long time. But she's never been particularly popular either, and seems like her runs get cancelled all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many volumes she's had now where it just restarts from Captain Marvel Volume 1, and they're like, we're going to go, give it another shot. So this is another reboot.
She seems to be a character who maybe works better in a team than on her own.
Yeah.
Like how a Hulk film is never going to be as good as Hulk in a film with someone else. I feel like Captain Marvel is kind of similar.
Yeah, I see that. She's quite like, despite being, a good guy character and having best interests at heart, she's been quite an antagonistic character in the past, in Civil War II, amongst other situations, where she gets kind of like a little bit totalitarian almost, and kind of wants to prevent things from happening, even if it means incarcerating people who might be innocent and stuff like that. And
I guess she's similar to Hulk in the way that she's a very powerful character who's, despite being seen as one of the good guys, is quite often used as like a villain who you kind of need to pull to your side.
She's like Tony Stark in that way, where Tony Stark, everyone likes Tony Stark, but he's not a good dude, and he tricks everyone, and everything's about him in the long run. And even he actually, for a while, like, he has a really kind of father-son relationship going on with Peter Parker, and that resolves in him basically tricking Peter into revealing his identity for the sake of the Superhero Registration Act. And he's kind of a bad bloke.
He is, But people still love him, and he's still seen as one of the good guys. Yeah,
whereas I think that they kind of didn't really know what to do with Captain Marvel for some time, so they kind of gave her the Tony Stark. She's a bit of a bad bloke type treatment.
Yeah.
But then people were just like, I'm done with her. Like, they weren't happy with it. So this is yet another fresh start for her. So
here's a question. What would you like to see be done with Captain Marvel then?
In the comics?
Yeah, in the comics, we're like, what kind of to make people like Captain Marvel? What would you give her like a? What kind of story do you think would be good for her to have?
Well, so recently in the comics, she was cancelled, so she was away for a while, and then she came back for a crossover events, and then she was away again for a while, and then now she's said that she's been looking after her sick brother and this kind of thing. But I think it might have been. I think for considering she's a cosmic entity, basically. Well, not an entity. She's a human, but or human Kree. Oh yeah, it just turned out that her mother was a Kree recently. Did you find that out?
No.
Yeah. So all this time it's been like she got the powers, and then she just recently found out that her mother was a Kree in disguise, like all this time.
Okay.
But surely that would give her brother powers. Anyway, never mind.
Maybe it was like dormant powers, and then when she went into space and everything happened, that kind of unlocks.
What I mean though is, considering that she's a character who a lot of stuff takes place in the cosmic realm of Marvel, I would like to see more of her out there. I think rather than like in this one where she was like, I was just on Main Island looking after my brother for a year and stuff. I think that a new dynamic for the Avengers that would be cool and interesting is to like have this character who kind of understands like the super militaristic Kree way of life, or other alien races and empires, and then have her bring that back and try and apply that kind of way of living and that way of politics and what have you to human, like the human world. I think that would be an interesting kind of like a spanner in the works. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But even then, when you were saying, I was just thinking about her, because she was kind of looking after her brother, wasn't she? Something, a comic in which I think it'd be really interesting if there's a comic where it's kind of the main vision of it was her looking after her brother or someone, some kind of like in Logan, where he's a fighter and he's always been a fighter and a warrior, and now he's just trying to look after someone and he doesn't really know how to do it. That's not really, he's got all these strengths, but this just really isn't one.
I think that works though, because Professor X is not able to control his powers due to kind of I presume dementia or something of the sorts, whereas as far as I'm aware, her brother doesn't have any kind of latent powers or anything, so I feel like it might just end up being a bit boring if they had a series of her looking after
maybe not exactly her brother, but something where she can't just punch a big guy into space or whatever. Yeah, true. Though that being said, like the first issue here doesn't have a huge amount of punching stuff into space. No, it does say that she can do that. Yeah. In this one, it says like the sun is her personal garbage disposal. Yeah, she's
like,
what'll I do with this giant monster we killed? And I'll just throw it into the sun.
Which is funny. Can you imagine how mad everyone would be if she accidentally like upset the sun and there were new like solar flares going out and stuff?
I think you're gonna say, what if she threw something into the sun and then Tony Stark like runs out and he's like, from that one blood sample it had the cure to cancer. Where did you put it? And she's like, the sun.
Good luck getting that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading something recently. I forget exactly what it was. It was probably Secret Invasion that I read this week. But something large gets, or maybe it was Captain Marvel, I don't recall, but something large got killed, and there was like this big argument between Tony Stark and the Fantastic Four and what have you, all wanting to be like, I want to take this back for tests, and like all the different kind of science groups were like, no, I want it, no, give it to me, which I thought was funny.
Right, you can get the front 4 tentacles, I'll get the back 6 tentacles.
Something that was weird to me about this was that in Civil War 2, Tony Stark and Captain Marvel go like really head to head on, basically there's an Inhuman who sees potential futures, including apocalyptic futures.
Yeah, which is right up Captain Marvel's alley, because she loves looking into the future and preventing stuff before it happens.
Yeah, so basically Tony's like, we can't take these as certain, like we've got proof that not all of these actually happened the way that
Yeah, his proof was every time there's times when I can't remember what the name of the hero was.
I think it's Ulysses.
Yeah, every time Ulysses would foresee a Celestial would come and destroy the world, and then so they knew in time and they stopped him, and he was like, therefore it's not the future, it's a future because we're living in a different future, and therefore it can't be the same. The only future.
A lot of people really didn't like that Civil War 2 run, but I think it's really interesting actually.
There's a really good side story to that, where it's Spider-Man is taking Ulysses around, just like swinging him around, and he's like, okay, give me this future of this guy, and he's trying to work out like, does he have biases? Does he have
Yeah.
Like, everyone's kind of fighting each other, and Spider-Man's just like, hey, let's just talk.
Let's just work it out.
Let's just work it out and see if there's anything we can do.
Is that Miles Morales Spider-Man or Peter Parker?
It's Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I know that in Civil War 2, Peter Parker has like one line, and Miles has a more significant role.
Yeah.
That's it,
because
okay.
I think he sits out of the second one, doesn't he? Yeah.
Which I would after revealing my identity in the original Civil War and then having to,
Yeah, because there's the Guardians come back, and Flash is Venom.
Yeah.
Obviously, Flash Thompson is a huge Spider-Man fan.
Yeah.
Gets super angry at Miles Morales' Spider-Man because he's like, "That's you're
spitting in
the face of what should be Spider-Man," and Miles is like, "Everyone can stop telling me what Spider-Man is and isn't meant to do."
That's interesting. That was quite a meta commentary moment, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird in this how Tony and Carol interact and are just like pretty chill with each other after. I
kind of read it as Tony's trying a bit too hard. He's always like trying to crack jokes, and he's like, "Hey, we're friends now again, right?" And she's not friendly with him at all. She kind of puts up with him.
But I don't know. From the comics, like since she kind of transitioned from Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel, I really just get the feeling that she doesn't have or want any connections with anybody. Like she just feels really cold, and there's this relationship between her and Rhodey, who's War Machine, in which it feels really forced to me. I just, because of the way she is with literally everybody, even like her, her best friend, like who's Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, like she's just not affectionate in any way. She's so cold that I cannot imagine her being warm and affectionate with someone like Rhodey. And even when it shows that, I'm like, that doesn't feel right though.
I get you.
I just feel like she's almost got, in the comics, to me anyway, and feel free to disagree with this, she's got like that kind of lofty I'm a god type personality that Superman has in the DC films but doesn't in the comics. You know what I mean? Yeah,
well maybe this comic will be a good chance to kind of humanize her a bit more, and
maybe
kind of bring more to the character, and because I'd love to have a comic where I really enjoy Captain Marvel.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've never been a fan per se. I've always been interested in the character, but I've never really gotten into any of the runs.
And maybe the reason is the runs just don't last long enough. Like if they lasted longer, we'd have something to read in.
I think the fact though that she's so changeable as a character and she goes by different monikers and different names, like she's been Binary and Star Force and all the Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel. Maybe that's why. Maybe like she doesn't ever have like the same outfit or the same. Makes people kind of harder to know where to jump on and stuff.
The original cover for this comic, it was kind of her sitting in the middle, but it was surrounded by like all the different versions that she's been. So maybe they'll touch on it in this comic. They'll be like, she doesn't really know who she is because she's always changing. Like you go buy so many. That's a
garbage cover, isn't it?
Oh, it's so bad.
I spent like €5 extra on the variant cover because I was like, I'm not buying that cover. It's so bad.
It didn't look good. No.
It looks like those kind of computer-generated 1998 type covers. Like you could see it being a Spawn cover or something. Like, oh no, it's bad. But the comic was pretty alright.
You know what it looked like? It looked like you go to a restaurant and she was the mascot, and it was a picture that was handed out to kids to draw, and the winner got a little reward or something.
You're right. That is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why have they made Rhodey so young in this though?
Yeah, I feel
like he's 22.
He does look very young. Yeah.
It's kind of odd, and especially considering that the depiction of Tony in recent years has become quite an old man. Yeah. Like, really aging, especially on kind of that Illuminati stuff from, like, 2008 onwards, where Tony and, 5 other dudes set up this, like, secret organization to look after the Earth and whatever. Like, in that, like, Mr. Fantastic, Namor, and Tony, like, they seem like really old guys. They've got, like, sunken eyes and yellowed skin, and so then for maybe it's just the art style, I don't know, but Rhodey seems like an awkward kind of young man, and I was like, what's going on here?
I don't know, how did he come back to life?
From which?
Well, he died in Civil War 2.
Yeah.
And that's what really set off Iron Man.
I don't know. There's probably some kind of intermediate.
Yeah, but then we get to this one and she's like, back from the dead, I see.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, I know it's comic books. And
he says like I've been dead before or something as well.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
he's like, yeah, it's so biggie.
Normalcy. Everyone comes back from the dead in comics.
Yeah.
Honestly, it does kind of cheapen it though, doesn't it? Someone dies and you're like, yeah.
Can't wait for them to come back.
Yeah. And I think the reason behind that though is just that they set it up so far in advance, like, okay, this group of people will do 25 issues and this group of people will do 20 issues. Then, so these people start making plans for what they want to do with the characters that exist in the roster, and then they're like, oh, they've been killed. Oh, well, I want them, so I'll bring them back.
Yeah.
I think if they did it kind of more on, like, I'm sure it's a good business move, but I think in terms of just, the continuity and stuff, it makes sense if just sometimes people stay dead.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll pick up issue 2.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of this comic.
I think it'll probably be the most effort they've put into a Captain Marvel series in some time, especially considering that they're going to want to capitalize on the new fans that you get from the film.
Yeah.
And even now, people are going to be interested. Well, kind of, in a way, I probably wouldn't have purchased this if the film wasn't coming out either.
Yeah, so but it definitely, for first issue, it really whet my appetite for the series, for the arc.
I don't think it would have if not for kind of the reveal of where she's ended up when she goes through a portal in like the last page.
Oh yeah, but like that kind of this is where we're going with it. That sold me. That sold me, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a crap comic book character this week?
Yeah, I do. My crap comic book character, I found not from like reading a comic or being like I'm going to look at the rogues gallery of this character. It happened because I was trying to think up of 5 Marvel heroes that I could translate into D&D so that I could... My friend's a big DC fan, I'm a big Marvel fan, and we were always like, oh, who'd win between these two? So we decided, no, we'll just translate them into a game and then have them fight. Okay. Yeah. And I was down to 4, and I was like, I was saying to my other friend, give me one more Marvel character who's a good one to use.
Yeah.
And as a joke, he just pulled out his phone and got the A to Z list of all Marvel characters. And the first ones he was like, 8-Ball and Z someone, because they're all numbers at the start. But then one of the
I know 8-Ball actually.
Yeah, one of the first ones on the list was Armless Tiger Man.
Oh, dude, I was gonna do this myself. Oh, yeah. I had like notes taken on this guy a while ago. He was one that I was gonna do. Yeah. No, please tell us more.
Okay, so before I get started,
this is from like the 40s, isn't it?
This is old, yeah. Before I get started, this is actually I thought this was a villain of Angel, the X-Men.
Yeah.
No, he's actually an enemy of the Angel.
Right.
Who's before I get on to this guy, a little bit on the Angel.
Yeah.
He's a superhero with no superpowers.
As you do.
Yeah.
Like Batman.
Yeah, and he's kind of quite similar, but he's like more copish than Batman.
Okay.
So his mother died in childbirth, so he was raised in a prison. And they
Wait, what?
Yeah.
How does that work?
His dad was the warden of a prison, and so they were like, "I just raise him in the prison."
Huh.
So he was raised by inmates who taught him how to fight, and then he became a cop. Which seems a bit contradictory.
Yeah.
But then he's like, he doesn't wear a police uniform. He wears a superhero costume, so people don't know who he is. But he doesn't wear a mask. So you can also just see his face.
Like Clark Kent.
Yeah, like exactly.
This guy inspired Superman, definitely, and Batman.
But let me give you a little description of the Armless Tiger Man, and this is his story. So he was just a regular guy working in a scientific factory. It just says scientific factory. I'm not sure what they were making, but he got his arms stuck in some machinery, and they were destroyed, crushed, and they had to be amputated.
He was stuck in there for quite some time as well, wasn't he? Yeah.
And so his arms are amputated, and that meant that he developed a hatred of machines.
Yeah.
So he moved to Nazi Germany and just started destroying all of their machinery.
And he'd like headbutted and stuff as well.
Yeah, so he'd headbutt it
because he didn't have fists.
If you look at his powers, it's agile, sharp teeth, can climb up a chain with his teeth, can hold onto a rope with his teeth, can throw knives with his toes. So
where did the tiger part of his powers kick in?
There's not any really. There's no real relationship.
He's got kind of stripes though on his back, doesn't he?
On his outfit.
It's just on his outfit.
On his outfit, yeah. So he was in Nazi Germany destroying machines, and he was captured by the Nazis, and they said, "Hey, do you know who's got a lot of machines? America."
Yeah.
So he was like, "Damn, you're right. I guess I'll work for you." So he moves to America and just starts wailing on machines.
Yeah.
He like captured a guy who worked in a machine plant, and he was like, "Where's your machine plant?" And then he killed him, and that's what brought the attention of the Angel, because he's like an inspector.
Yeah.
So he arrives at the scene, and they're like, "Oh, there's no leads. Oh, we know that this person was stabbed with toe knives. It could be anyone."
Toe knives.
And he's like, "What's that? I smell a specific brand of wine." And so he's like meant to be such a great detective that he smelt in the air a specific type of wine that was only sold in a specific hotel.
Oh,
because
he's so good.
The Armless Tiger Man, unlike a lot of like, especially like the feral villains, isn't living in a cave. He's just in a 4-star hotel downtown New York. So
what a guy.
So he tracks him down and he puts him in prison. So later on, he's later escaped or freed. We don't know. We just know he's out.
He's just out.
And he was put on a strike team by the Red Skull to infiltrate Wakanda. Now, at some point between these two events, he's developed a taste for human flesh and has become a cannibal.
That's how he got out.
And has become a cannibal. So he assaulted T'Challa's children and wife and threatened to kill him, but then one of the Howling Commandos walked up to him and shot him in the head, killing him instantly because
that was the end of him?
You'd think so.
Oh, wait a second. You don't mean to say that this comic book character comes back from the dead?
He doesn't actually.
Oh, well, damn, that's the real plot twist.
So, no, he's put on a jury by Pluto. Now, Pluto is the Greek god of...
the planet.
Yeah, he's the planet, and it is a planet. No, but he's the Greek god of the dead, and I think he's meant to be kind of... I think he's like an Ares or Hercules character.
Right.
Even though... No, Hercules is the Roman name. No, they're right, okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, so Pluto was like, okay, I'm gonna make a jury, and they're all gonna be supervillains. So you've got some big names in there. It's like big villains who've
like
died.
Doctor Doom and stuff.
Doctor Doom. You've got Red Skull.
Okay.
You've got all these big guys, and then just sitting at the back is Armless Tiger Man.
He should be sat at the front. Wait, is he just chewing on a dude?
Probably. Now the Armless Tiger Man, the Pluto's going through his plan, and Armless Tiger Man's like, hey, I could take on Pluto. I could take on a god. So just out of nowhere, he attacks Pluto and is like, I'm going to become the king of the dead now. Pluto just like demolishes him and sends him to the bottom of hell, and that's where he is to this day.
Oh no. Poor dude. And because he's got no arms, he probably can't climb up unless someone dangles a chain which he can climb up with his teeth.
This guy looks ridiculous. He's got like big fangs.
Yeah, I see. I heard about this guy a while ago. I think someone suggested him to me as a comic book character, so I looked at him a little bit and I took note of it on my phone, so I was like, if I'm ever short a week, I can come and get this guy. So that's funny that you've ended up with him, but he does look ridiculous. Yeah. He'll be on screen now, so if you're watching on YouTube, as opposed to anywhere else where we don't post this.
Yeah.
Now I think about it.
We've only got it on YouTube. Yeah, he's got like he's got a bit of like a Wolverine kind of haircut.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, he's maybe got like a mustache or a goatee or something.
I don't recall that well, but he's dumb looking.
He's very dumb looking, yeah.
Oh, what a... He couldn't think of a cool name either as well, you know?
Armless Tiger Man.
Armless Tiger Man. What a... I mean, I don't know what the name would be, but like it could be something like mildly edgy or whatever instead of just descriptive.
Nope.
Be like,
what about the T-Rex?
Again, I guess like Red Skull is pretty much just
a description. Yeah.
A descriptive name as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but he doesn't have a skull for a head. It's just kind of like
it's skull shaped.
It's skull like.
I guess everyone's head is if you think about it.
Damn, you're right.
No, but it's particularly skull like.
Skull like, it's got the nose and everything. But yeah, I guess you're right. The guy, so in a film, I thought maybe you could do like an the Angel film, which is kind of like, it'd be a comedy, it would be like a mixture of a superhero and like a cop film, and it'd be very silly and over the top.
Yeah.
Because this is a very silly and over the top villain, and I wanted the Armless Tiger Man to be played by what's it called, Jermaine Clement, who is in What We Do in the Shadows. He's leave me to do my dark bidding.
Yeah, I know the guy you mean.
The older of the three.
He's in Eagle versus Shark as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's from Flight of the Conchords, the TV show, I think.
Is he?
I believe so. Yeah, I know the guy you mean.
Yeah, but I thought, especially because
be
he's got the
he's got the look.
He's got the look, yeah. So he'd really pull off this guy well. And I
what
think
a guy!
His humor could work well. It's just quite over the top, silly.
When it was announced that Waititi was going to be doing Thor Ragnarok, I was really hopeful that he'd be in it. You know, but maybe. There's a lot of talk about Waititi doing another Marvel film, so I'd love him to be in it in some shape or form. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But that's who I'd have, because
I see that. It's a good casting, actually. Yeah, I like it. And would you give him like prosthetic arms, or would you just like CGI them off?
I'd CGI them off.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think
that's pretty doable.
Yeah, we don't want to draw attention. I mean, like the chain climbing teeth and the knife holding toe. When you look at his powers and abilities, it's like especially agile toes that are able to grasp knives.
I remember reading. Did he end up in a circus at some stage or something? I feel like.
Oh yeah, but that was like for a panel.
Okay, right.
But yeah, that's the Armless Tiger Man.
What a name! What a man!
What a man!
Yeah. Well, if anyone's gonna beat Thanos, you know who it's gonna be. Yeah. Cool. So I'm gonna move on. I want to talk a little bit. This week I rewatched the Amazing Spider-Man, the not Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield film. And I must have seen this. Well, I saw this in cinemas when it came out, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years later, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out.
Yeah.
And I think I rewatched it before going to see that. But
for sure.
I haven't seen it since.
Yeah.
So in my head, the way I remembered it was I enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man. And then I went and saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and was like, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And so much to the stage where it tainted my thoughts on the first one significantly. But I was thinking about it the other day. It was on, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a watch. Maybe it's not as bad as I'm remembering it. Maybe it's too dragging it down.
Yeah.
So I just took like a couple of notes, and I just wanted to talk about them a little bit. So maybe it'll be a bit of a shorter episode today, which is fine. But I just wanted to say, so basically in that film, you've got the problems that people usually have with it is kind of, he's a bit too cool for Peter and what have you, which I think is fair. But I think the characterization of Peter is more or less fine, in my opinion. But the characterization of Spider-Man becomes okay as the film goes on, but for the majority of the film, it's really wrong. Because in actual fact, right, he goes from kind of being this like dorky dude to just not nice to people very quickly, like in and out like that. It's like tonally it didn't really know who the character was. But Spider-Man, right, the situation, he goes and tries buying this chocolate milk. He doesn't have enough money for it. He gives the guy then a hard time for being like, you have to pay for this milk. And then won't help the store clerk when he's getting robbed. Which, okay, whatever. To be honest, what kind of store clerk is like, this guy has a gun, hey random stranger who we just had a disagreement, go stop
him.
Anyway, so the dude then runs into...
It wasn't like normally when he runs past him in the corridor. They went out opposite doors and were walking in different directions. Yeah.
But then the dude, he falls next to Uncle Ben and drops his gun, and the gun is like 50-50 distance from
the two of them.
And Uncle Ben dives on it. They get to it at more or less the same time. Uncle Ben gets shot.
Yeah.
So first of all, like, no one was in danger there. No. This dude was just running. He had a gun, but like, this is New York.
Everyone has a gun.
Well, not everyone, but a lot of people probably have a concealed carry gun.
Yeah.
Especially with how many cops and Secret Services dudes there are in New York. Like, he just had a gun. He wasn't threatening anyone.
He tripped over and dropped it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he was going to get up and shoot Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben could have just literally stood there and done nothing. Anyway, regardless, that's not really the point. So, Spider-Man then his goal isn't, right, I'm going to become a better person, I'm going to take responsibility for these powers, as Spider-Man should be. He basically goes around and just beats up anyone who looks remotely like this villain.
Yeah.
And he's searching for them. And he'll find people doing crimes, and he's like, are you the guy? And he'll check if they've got the matching tattoo of the guy who shot Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, he's just like, whatever, and leaves them, lets them continue doing their crime.
Yeah.
Which just feels really wrong for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then he puts his costume together, not to protect his identity and protect his loved ones, but because he doesn't want to be caught for beating up all these dudes. And I didn't realize it when I first watched that film, I think, but that just feels like such a misunderstanding of what Spider-Man should be.
I think the problem with it was Spider-Man at the start had, at the start he wasn't being responsible with his powers.
Yeah.
And it took the death of his uncle to realize, I need to be responsible with his powers.
But he doesn't do that.
Yeah, but I think what the problem they made with this film was he wasn't responsible for his uncle's death.
No.
Because he was responsible for being mean to that clerk, but that didn't...
No, that would have... nothing changed.
Yeah, he didn't choose to stand out of the way and let the guy pass. The guy was halfway down the street and he didn't run after him.
The only reason he could blame himself was because he slammed the glass door of the house when he stormed out having a tantrum, and then Uncle Ben followed him.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not...
It's
a stretch.
Yeah. So I think the problem was he wasn't inspired and became responsible because of his uncle's death. He becomes responsible later on when he saves a young boy and he realizes, I need to do more of this. The problem with it is they spend too much time on him not being responsible.
The majority of the film, he's an irresponsible, not nice dude.
Yeah. So I think it's okay to have an irresponsible Spider-Man, but you need to end that earlier in the film than...
Also, just looking at this, obviously we know a lot about Spider-Man, but if you just looked at it for a second where you're just watching this as a film, it's not until he saves that boy from the bridge, which the lizards trashed, that he kind of finds some level of responsibility and is a hero for the first time, which is a hefty way into the film.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to get into some of the other stuff, like who cares about his parents and whatever, Anyway. But he saves this kid, and in order to save him, he takes his mask off and is like, hey, look, it's me, I'm just a guy, I'm here to help you and whatever. Which, he saves the boy, it's useful. But, if this was a brand new Spider-Man, and he was like, well, it took me showing my face to save this kid, it feels weird that he just goes back to just wearing the mask all the time after that. I'd feel like he'd kind of be like, well, I am covering my identity because I was beating up people, but now that I'm saving people, I want them to see that I'm just a guy and I'm here to help them.
I think it needed more... We needed to understand more what was going on in his head. Yeah. Because we didn't get... There's a whole lot of scenes in this where there's just no speaking at all, or it's just everyone going, hey, wait, don't punch me. Yeah. Because there's not enough of him expressing how he feels. Yeah. And I know it's a lot harder when you're going from a comic book where they've got all the thought huge monologues to film where it's silly if you have that. Yeah. But yeah, I think they needed to spend less time on him being responsible and more time on showing what was going through him, and I think then it would have made it more realistic to the closer to the Spider-Man that we know. You know?
Well, I think in terms of kind of a match to the comic book character, the character of Spider-Man towards the end of the film is closer. Yeah. And the quipping that he does when he is Spider-Man
is good.
Is good. Yeah. It's a good characterization overall.
I think a lot of people say he's a better Spider-Man but a worse Peter Parker.
Yeah, and I think that he maybe becomes a better Spider-Man, but it's really off-putting, I think, how wrong the character is for the majority of the film. Yeah. It really does feel like more of a Batman story or something, you know, where he starts out kind of is revenge hunting dudes down? No.
I don't that I think is a very good point about why it's it's not the kind of Spider-Man that we're more familiar with. I find it quite silly when people are like, "Oh, this Spider-Man is too attractive."
Oh
like,
yeah, it's Hollywood.
Yeah, it's but also like Spider-Man has always been attractive. Like in his group of friends,
Yeah,
it's normally him, MJ, Gwen Stacy, and then the boys Flash,
Harry. I think they don't understand though. I think there is some kind of level of he's mysterious rather than attractive.
But like,
I don't think he's like a handsome dude. You know,
I always got the feeling that he was, because I think everyone in that group is meant to be quite attractive.
No, Harry's definitely not an attractive guy.
Oh, no.
People are attracted to Harry for his money.
Yeah, no. Okay, Harry aside, I think they're all meant to be quite attractive, and so Flash, who's maybe more attractive than Harry, is like, why don't they like me? And maybe it's because he's more mysterious. But he is attractive enough that, like, a lot of girls throughout the comics like Harry, not Harry, Peter a lot, you know?
Yeah, but like, then there is kind of main character syndrome as well, like, whereby every woman that interacts with Peter we get to see, whereas the majority of women that interact with Harry or Flash we probably don't see.
No.
Plus, like, Flash gets married very, very young. So, like, for the majority of what we see of Flash in the comics, he's either married and then divorced and then crippled. He loses his legs, you know? So, we don't ever really see him in his prime outside of high school, I suppose.
I think high school kind of was his prime.
Yeah, well, that's it as well. But, like, if you look at that friend group, right, say you're Gwen Stacy or MJ for a second. Well, don't actually, but okay. Hypothetically, you know, you're one of those characters.
Yeah.
I was just, that sounded weird when I said, yeah, right, so your friend group, you've got Flash Thompson, Harry Osborn, Peter Parker. That's kind of like your clique.
Yeah.
Right, so Flash Thompson's kind of the head of the hierarchy of frat bros, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe he's handsome, maybe he's good at sports, but, like, he's dumb as, right? And he's got just, like, an army of dudes who just want to be exactly the same as him. So there's nothing really special for them going. Also, you're either Gwen Stacy or MJ, so literally anyone would do anything for you.
Yeah.
So then you've got Harry Osborn, who's probably... He doesn't really understand what it's like to be these people. He doesn't relate to them because he's super rich. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. You know, he's got kind of lofty ambitions, and he's just like, I'll throw money at any problem, you know? Maybe he doesn't understand why someone wouldn't like him because... For anything other than, you know, they should like me, I'm rich, I suppose. And then you've got Peter, who's suddenly, he's like, oh yeah, I'd like to be interested in you, but oh no, sorry, I've got to go do something, I got to go take photographs, you know, and he runs off. Like, this is a dude, he's still in high school, he's got pretty much a full-time job, he doesn't have the time, almost, to show interest in these women, and for MJ and Gwen, that was probably like a first for them as well, I suppose, you know? Where
No, I agree with you. I just think it's kind of silly that people are like, this is bad because he's attractive.
No, you're right.
I think he's always meant to be, not a knockout, but he's always meant to be good looking.
I've no problem with him being attractive in the portrayal in the films, because nearly all actors are some level of attractive, because you're more likely to want to look at someone who's an attractive person, you know? Like, if you look at the ugly person in a film, they're nearly always just an attractive person with glasses on, you know? Like, it's not maybe correct, you know, it's not how it should be, but that's I've just learned to accept that as how Hollywood operates.
Yeah, Hollywood, it's more likely to employ more attractive people.
Yeah. But then, like, Andrew Garfield is he's an attractive fella, but he's kind of weird looking as well. I think, like, he's got like a very, like, pointy chin and kind of wiry frame for someone, which enabled him to play a young Peter, because he was like 30 or something.
But he looked younger than Tobey Maguire did, I felt. Tobey Maguire looked like an old person with a young face, whereas Andrew Garfield kind of looked like a young person who was old for his age, you know?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I see what you mean. Fair.
Yeah.
Another thing I just wanted to talk about was the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man. Wasn't a great characterization. I think it was fine for the most part, and the CGI on the Lizard looked kind of crap, you know. But overall, like, I think that Kurt Connors was interesting in this, and you kind of sympathized with him. And there's a really great shot where he's looking at like a reflection of himself with his hand, and so it's like he's got two arms back, and I was like, nice.
That is a great.
I had
shot,
no recollection of that until rewatching.
Yeah.
And I really like just when Peter like goes to his house and they just like sit at like an island in the kitchen and just like talk about science. And yeah, it's kind of like technobabble. Like, it doesn't mean anything to anyone, but like.
You can see their bonding.
I just like, it felt like in Spider-Man 2 when Peter goes and has dinner with Otto and his wife. Like, that's a great scene as well. It is. And it's such a simple thing, but it gives the character a lot more depth. But anyway, I've recently read some issues of Spider-Man where, as we discuss like nearly every week, I restarted like a year and a bit ago from issue 1, and I'm up to like nearly 700 now. But recently, Kurt Connors and the Lizard came to like an ultimatum where he was suppressing the Lizard with chemicals and formulas and what have you. But the Lizard takes over and he's like, I'm sick of being suppressed. And he actually basically sheds Kurt Connors, so he just becomes like fully the Lizard. Like, he hatches out of himself. He's just the Lizard now. He's got Connors' brain. But, you know, he hates it and he just wants to be the Lizard all the time, so he's no way of turning back anymore. But he puts out like a full-on assault on New York City, where just by being near him, he basically disables kind of like a large part of your brain, so that he like, you know, exerts pheromones or something.
Oh, it makes it like activates the reptilian part of your brain. Yeah,
so it's like just the reptilian aspect, because, you know, it says that
he's got control.
there were animals in the sea, and then they came on to land and became like reptiles instead of amphibians or whatever, and then they grew into mammals eventually. So he's like, everyone still has like a reptile part of their brain. Yeah, but that's really great, because it's really interesting to see just kind of people turn into this kind of really like feral, you know, like monstrous type creatures that are just like, you know, I need to eat, I need to breed, I need to warm up, I need to cool down and stuff. And it's interesting. It's done in a really cool way. Yeah. At one stage, Doc Ock comes into close proximity with the Lizard, and he just turns into this feral, like, attack everything with my arms, you know, because Doc Ock's greatest attribute is his brain. So when that's kind of switched off, it's really interesting. In the Amazing Spider-Man film, he just wants to turn people into lizards, which is kind of maybe more true of like the original Lizard. Yeah,
that was his original plan, was it was to put, he had his chemical that turned him into the Lizard, and his plan was to pour it into the swamp, to the Everglades, and so he presumes everyone in Florida just drinks right out of the swamp.
Yeah, he does.
And so they would also turn into a lizard.
But I think that if like this comic that I'm reading now is like 2008, so this was 4 years before the Amazing Spider-Man film came out. Yeah. If they'd adapted it more like that, I think it would have been much more interesting than he just wanted to turn everyone in New York into lizards, because he didn't really have any huge purpose for it, I suppose. Yeah. And I think that if it was just kind of a side effect of him being the Lizard, that he made people turn feral around him, it would be a lot more interesting. And I think it would have given Peter some interesting ultimatums in terms of like Gwen or Captain Stacy kind of just turn into this like base, and you know, him and Captain Stacy already don't get along, so kind of be interesting if suddenly, you know, like Aunt May, she's like stripped away to just her basic instincts, and she just says what she really thinks of Peter and stuff, and kind of like, you know, you're a bit of a bum and you feel sorry for yourself, and like suddenly I think that you could have some really interesting interactions, like maybe Peter gets kind of taken over by it and says stuff to people, and interesting character moments would come out of that, instead of just they turn into lizards and then they're fine again because
it would definitely give more to the, like I was saying, you'd hear more about what was going on in people's heads and what he actually was going through.
I think that would be a superior way for them to have done that.
What in the world of Amazing Spider-Man, what do you think we would do if just all of Manhattan was now giant lizard people?
Should probably abandon it.
Yeah, but like they'd escape every now and then. We have to like fence it all off.
Blow up the bridges like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, but then they'd swim out. They're all lizard people.
But it's ice.
Oh, of course.
We just freeze the water.
And as we know from Amazing Spider-Man, if you get the lizard cold,
he dies.
He goes weak, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Well, lizards have to regulate their body temperatures at all times.
I know. I've got a lizard, and he has a heat pad.
What's your lizard's name?
My lizard's name is Iggy.
Like Iggy Lizard.
wow, that's the first time it's not been Iggy Azalea or Iggy Pop. Everyone's like, oh, it's
well,
like...
mine makes more sense.
Someone's like, Iggy, and I'm like, in that second, I'm like, is this an Iggy Azalea person or an Iggy Pop kind of person? I've got to decide now, because they're about to say. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Hey, keeping on the Spider-Man and Lizard conversation, there's been a thing that artists online have been doing recently, which is your spider sona, which is, so in the multiverse of in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, there's a Spider-Man in all these different universes, and what would it be in the universe where you're Spider-Man?
Yeah.
So I started making mine, and I wanted to go for what I felt I would play to my strengths and weaknesses more. Yeah. So, for example, my Spider-Man is called Spider-Boy because I don't feel like a man, you know. I don't think I could come across as, you know, Spider-Man's like, oh, he could be any age. I'm like, I give off quite boy vibes, you know.
Okay.
My Spider-Man doesn't have any webs because I am not smart enough to make web shooters.
So this is everyone's like there. If I was Spider-Man,
if I was Spider-Man,
rather than just if he was in your world.
Yeah.
I guess your world is the same as everyone else participating in this, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's kind of like if I was Spider-Man. So I've done changes to his outfit to make him more kind of boyish. I've got kind of shorts, back. The spider symbol is like the straps of my backpack. Mm-hmm. I've got shoes on. And I think because he doesn't have the webs, so he can't like swing around the Empire State Building, but he does have really big jumps. So he's kind of bouncing around, so kind of more downtown. Is where he'd be better suited, because if he misses his jump, he's not got a web to catch him, you know. But I think so. He's not normally as strong as Spider-Man. But then for like a couple minutes, he can like pump himself up and be super strong for like a couple minutes, because he's more based on jumping spiders, and they can like pump their limbs full of blood and make him really strong. Yeah.
So you've done some drawings of this guy as well.
I've done some drawings. I've only done like the first sketches to kind of plan him out, but then I'm going to start doing my proper sketches, and then I have a project planned to do a couple pages of if he had a comic book.
Cool. And we'll be able to post this on our Instagram to show the viewers what we're talking about.
I'll put them on my own, which is @cacti&hugs, but I can also put them on...
You've got a private account though, so you're not going to know who to accept and stuff if you do that.
That's true.
So maybe we should put it on the deep dive account.
I'll put it on the deep dive. Yeah, that makes more sense. But yeah, I also decided, you know, the villains kind of change from universe to universe. I wanted to switch up my lizard a bit because I decided the lizard would be my kind of big villain. Yeah. So he's got kind of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation that the old lizard had in the comic books, where Kurt Connors and the lizard are two completely different people.
They both want to be in control.
Yeah, and they don't really have the memories of each other. But I think he's going to maintain his intelligence.
Yeah.
So he'll like make like little bombs and acids and that kind of things to use. So it'll be kind of Kurt Connors will start working on an experiment, and then it'll change when he comes back. The lizard is like taken over the experiment and changed it into something else, and he's like, oh, now I've got to fix it again.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. So you like the same components but using them for different things.
Yeah. So and I think so he'll have the kind of image I'm going for is he's more reptilian, so he's not got like the human legs, he's got more kind of like raptor-y legs.
Okay.
And then the arm he grows back is super big.
Yeah, like Hellboy.
Like Hellboy, but then his other hand is still small, so he can still do like experiments and stuff.
Oh, so it's still kind of, you know, practical.
Practical, yeah.
That sounds really cool. You're going to do drawings of him as well?
I'm going to do drawings of him because in the potential comic book, a couple of pages of that will be him and Spider-Man interacting. Nice. Yeah. That
sounds really cool, actually. I really like that idea. Speaking of just kind of the lizard and, you know, the dynamic, something that I've always found really interesting was kind of the dynamic between him and his family, where they know he's the lizard and they're kind of terrified of him turning back into the lizard and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I thought, like, this could be, you know, used in the story that you're writing, or kind of in this reimagined Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But if it was given a situation where you know, he'd been the lizard for some time, instead of just like he'd just stumbled on the lizard, and he could grow his arm back temporarily, but he was trying to like work it out so that he could you know, make it a permanent addition. he could then have his son, and his son could have like weird kind of lizard features occasionally and stuff as well. And I think that would be interesting, where then he'd be really panicked, because he'd be trying to work it out so that he could undo the lizardy effects of his son.
Yeah.
But the lizard part of him is like, take care of my young, you know, so it wants to keep him as the lizard, and that is kind of a dynamic where it'd be like a tug of war between the... It's kind of like one of those films where you've got like the dad and the stepdad. Yeah, they want different things.
They want different things for this.
I think that would be a really interesting
That would
thing.
be cool,
and that would have made him a much more sympathetic villain in a film like The Amazing Spider-Man as well, I think. So,
yeah. No, but I've got a couple friends who've done their own as well. One of them's gone for more of like a stealthy kind of, you know, he's got night vision and a paralyzing touch. But he's a lot weaker. And I've got one who's gone more of the Penny Parker route, where he's got like iron spider legs, but that's kind of his strength. He's not Spider-Man with spider legs.
Right.
He's more of like Doc Ock, where he uses them a lot more. I've got one where they have like a tail, because they're more of like a lizard spider mix. Yeah. So if you were a Spider-Man, what kind of changes do you think you'd have?
My spider would just fight any man.
Okay. He's not a hero. He's just like, I'll fight anyone who gets in my way.
Man, and he'd lose some, like, a lot of the time, but he'd always get back up again.
Okay.
He's got the Rocky Balboa approach.
Of course.
Doesn't matter if the dude's like 20 times the size of him. He's just like, nah, I'll do it.
Juggernaut just steps on him. He's like, next time you're going down, Juggernaut.
It's like that line from Infinity War where Thor's like, Thanos has never beaten me, and Rocket's like, he did beat you, and he's like, he's never beaten me twice.
Yeah. That's a good line.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with that.
Me too.
Do you know who started this kind of project of the...
No, I can have a look into it, but I know just like a lot of online artists have been giving it a go, but I'll have a look and see.
Yeah, do, because it'd be cool if we could get into contact with them and share some of the ones that you've been talking about as well.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's all for this week. Please don't forget to give us a like, give us a wee subscribe.
And if you haven't, if you want to give a comment, get your name in for the Funko Pop prize, then...
Yeah, that's in our previous video, which has got the picture of the Funko Pop and giveaway in the thumbnail, so you should be able to find it.
And it's 5 seconds of your time and literally free, so...
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah. All good, all good. Cool. All right, well, thanks for listening. We'll hit you up next week, and anything going on next week you can think of?
No, but I'm sure we'll stumble across something to talk about.
Well, tune in for that exciting goodness.
Tune in next week for something, I guess.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. All right, well, stay safe.
Bye.